Just wanted to show you some of the silver cutlery that I've got. Over the years I keep collecting it and love to draw it and paint it. It's lots of fun, so interesting. But today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to paint it in a very rustic style, as though it's just been dug up from the earth. It's just been found, ploughed up in a field, been under the ground for years and years and gone all rusty. So let's play. Hi everyone. I just want to play around with some colours now to try and achieve some really nice granulation effects so that I can paint my spoons and cutlery in that old rusty sort of style. So let's first of all try a few different colours to get that granulated effect. The first one I'm going to use, which I've used previously on some artworks using these lovely colours. This one is ultramarine blue with burnt sienna. So we'll pop the ultramarine blue on first. And I'm putting it on top of some clear water that I put on previously that you saw me do. So that is ultramarine blue, and I'm just going to add some burnt sienna to that. Now ultramarine blue is a granulating colour. It's also transparent. Burnt sienna is semi-transparent. The next one is hematite genuine and burnt sienna. So some clean water first. And we're going to go with the hematite first. Pop that on. Hematite genuine is definitely a granulating colour. Now we'll go in with the burnt sienna. And we'll just let that do its thing while we go on to the next one. The next one I want to show you is Moonglow. These are all Daniel Smith colours, by the way. So being generous with the water. And I'm working on Archie's 300 GSM cold press paper. Next one is Moonglow, which is quite a purple colour. With burnt sienna. And the final one I'm going to show you is Sodalite Genuine. Just make that a little bit stronger. It's got quite a blue shade to this one. And back in with the burnt sienna. So I'm just going to show you those a little bit closer. I'll let them dry, and then we'll come back and decide which one is best to use on our cutlery painting. So I've took out some of my favourites and decided to go with some lovely shapes. I particularly love this piece. And this one, and the little tongs too. They're really sweet. So I've just drawn them on some watercolour paper. This is the same paper that I used in the experiment, which is the Arches 300 GSM cold pressed. So the first thing we do is just add some water very carefully to the knife. Now remember, the colour, when we start to put it on, it will only actually flow where I've put the water. So I'm being very careful not to go out of the edges. This has got to be nice and glossy, so quite wet. Just making sure that it is nice and wet. Plenty of water on there to enable our colour to flow. Now you're probably wondering which one I decided to go with. And I've decided to go with the hematite. I don't use that very often in my painting, so I thought it would be nice to play with it. So what I'm doing is dropping that colour in and just letting it flow. Let's get a bit closer to that edge. Now I am on a slight slope here. You can do this flat or on a slope, doesn't really matter. Being on a slope, the paint is going to gather down at the bottom, so I may have to just suck that up in a little while with a dry brush. We'll see how we go. So the hematite's on. Now I'm going to go with the burnt sienna. And I'm just going to drop that in. Just here and there. Now I can move that paper around a little bit, which will help them mix and mingle. Now while they're doing that, I will go on to the next one, and then I'll come back to this one and add a little bit more of another colour. So bear with me. Just going to suck up first. Like I said, it has gathered down there. So to suck up, all you do is dry your brush, and you can just touch wherever you need to touch, and it will just suck it up. So this is a number 10 round brush. It really doesn't matter what type of brush you use for this project. Main thing is that you get plenty of water on there so that the colour will flow easily. Back on with the hematite. And I'm just going to tilt the paper to encourage that colour to flow down to the bottom. I'm just sucking that little puddle up because I don't want particularly to have a run there. It has started to just dry into the paper here, so I'm just adding a little bit more water. And a little bit more of that hematite. Just dropping that little bit of paint in there will allow it to run down into the rest. Whoops. So that's what I mean about just being a little bit careful that you don't get too many puddles happening. All right, so we'll go back on with the burnt sienna now. Now the next one. Trying to get as close as I can to those edges, those pencil lines, without going over. Just try and get a little bit of variation of tone in this one. Now the burnt sienna. Just lifting out a little bit, lifting out, just tipping to allow it to mix. Okay, the next colour I'm going to use is phthalo turquoise. So phthalo turquoise is a beautiful colour, and just dropping it in, it'll give the metal of these implements just a bit of verdigris. Just some little spots of it just here and there. And that will continue to mix and mingle. Okay, now that has to dry before I go on to the next layer. So I will come back soon with it nice and dry, and then I'll apply the final touches. So here we go, we're all nice and dry, and you can see that I've started to lift out some highlights. I'm going to show you how to do that now. So you need a tissue or a piece of rag, and you need a brush that has stiffer bristles. So this one has nylon bristles, like a Taclon, something like that would be ideal. So I've wet the brush, just taking off the excess water, and I can start to lift out some decoration or some highlights. A little bit more water there. See how it's just started to lift out. Now you do have to wash your brush regularly, because as you work into the watercolour, it does get on the tip of the brush. So you end up just moving colour around rather than lifting. So there's lots of little highlights. When you look at this, see the little highlights along here. I'm going to try and lift some of those out, and some that are on the end of the handle too. There's lots of little highlights in this section. Okay, so I'm not going to put every little detail in there. The idea is to just get a little bit to give us some interest to the piece. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of the Moonglow. I'm going to just start to put a few shadows in. Just to get a bit of depth to the piece. So this is just straight Moonglow. A little bit along the edges here. Remember that little run that I had earlier? I lifted it out the same way as I have been showing you. So just a little bit on this one. It's just a very transparent wash that I'm using. Okay, just finish off quickly now. I'm going to do some shadow just on the paper itself. And again, I'm just using the Moonglow to do this. I'm just following down, following the shape of the cutlery itself. So just very transparent wash of Moonglow here. Making it look as though it's just sitting on the paper. Straighten that up a little bit. Every now and again it probably will pick up a little bit of the watercolour from the implement, and that's fine. I think it adds for a more interesting painting anyway. Okay, so just a final little burst of interest. I'm going to take some Moonglow, very transparent Just doing a little bit of splattering. I'm going to take a little bit of that burnt sienna colour. And also a little bit of the Hematite Genuine. Just putting it on the brush, tapping the brush and getting those lovely speckles there. I'll show you some close-ups. There's a little spatula and the tongs. And lastly, the fancy knife. I hope you enjoyed watching the video and have a go. Let me see what you come up with. Thanks for watching.